I'd like to call this meeting to order. Planning Commission meeting Wednesday, June 26th. It is 6 p.m. May I have a roll call, please?
Chairwoman Amanda Denmark, Vice Chairman Charlie Wetmore,
Here.
Commissioner Michael Brock,
Here.
Commissioner Rich Delport,
Here.
Commissioner Lydia DePaul, here. Commissioner Jim Flynn.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, notice regarding adjournment. The Planning Commission will not hear new items after 9:30 p.m. unless authorized by a majority vote of the commission members present. Items which have not been heard before 9:30 p.m. may be continued to the next regular meeting or a special meeting date as determined by the commission members. Before we have adoption of agenda or adoption of minutes, we don't have adoption of agenda on here. We're gonna have to do that too. I'd like to take a minute. Obviously, commissioners, you know, and staff, you know, we unfortunately lost a member of our planning commission suddenly last month. It was heartbreaking to learn about the sudden passing of Jason Stewart, who served as assistant town manager in Port Wentworth, was a Bluffton resident, and shared his expertise on the planning commission with us. His commitment to our community and invaluable contributions will be remembered fondly. Our deepest condolences go out to his family, friends, and colleagues during this difficult time. And I would like to ask us to observe a moment of silence in his memory. Thank you. Jason will truly be missed. He was an integral part of this commission. Can I have a motion for adoption of agenda? Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. And motion carries unanimously. The minutes for May 22nd, 2024, can I have a motion on that?
Motion to approve.
Second? Okay, motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Aye. Aye. Aye.
That is approved. Do we have any public comment? Nothing? No. Nobody wants to talk about anything? Okay. Okay, no old business. We'll go to the first item of new business. Item 1 is Compass Self-Storage, 315 Gibbet Road, Certificate of Appropriateness, Highway Corridor Overlay. A request by Amstel Construction LLC on behalf of the owners, Amstel Storage Ventures 81 LLC, for approval of a Certificate of Appropriateness Highway Corridor Overlay application. The project consists of two-story buildings totaling approximately 109,398 square foot of climate-controlled self-storage space, the associated landscaping, lighting, and other infrastructure. The properties are zoned Jones Estate PUD, consists of 3.21 acres identified by the tax map numbers in the agenda, and are located at the northeast corner of the Kane Drive and Estate Drive intersection west of Gibbet Road and fronts Highway 170, which is the reason we have the HCOD.
Mr. Chairman, I'll have to recuse myself for this project.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. Tonight before you, as was addressed by Chair Wetmore, is the Compass Self-Storage Facility. I don't have to go through the whole agenda item language again, so I'll start off here with the site plan. As you can see, the highway is on the top left side of your screen here. So it's labeled Oaksy Highway here. I've got a little X that keeps popping up this, but so the two facility buildings that we are discussing are these right here. This is that retention pond that is out there currently. So that's how you kind of can see it as you're driving past today. I have included the roof plans for both buildings as well as the elevations. So this is building A, and back to the site plan. Building A is the one further away from the highway. Both are under the highway corridor, but this is the one that is further from the corridor, or the highway within the corridor, as well as a building section and the tower elevation, since it is a little bit different there, as well as the elevations for building B here, which this is the one that is closer to Highway 170, as well as their section for the tower and the building section. They have provided perspectives for you for both buildings. And you can see here where it's the Oakity Highway view down here is what you're getting. This is not to include the landscape plan, so the landscaping on this is not perfectly reflective of the landscape plan, but it is of the elevation. And then the materials, colors, configurations for the building, as well as the lighting plan, dumpster enclosure detail. I'm flying through this, and I, as always, am happy to go backwards. But it typically helps if we just go through it quickly on the front end and then answer questions as we have them. And the landscape plan here. So you can see again, this is the 170 side here, along with the plant schedule. The review criteria are found in section 317.3 of our Unified Development Ordinance. Because this is located within the Jones Estate PUD, more of the design criteria are found in that than they are the Unified Development Ordinance and the applications manual. So I've gone through all of those. As this is a certificate of appropriateness highway corridor overlay, the Planning Commission can approve the application as submitted by the applicant, approve the application with conditions, or deny the application as submitted by the applicant if they find it does not meet the criteria found in section 317.3 of our ordinance. At the applicant's request, a table is also something that could be considered. Staff went through and looked at the criteria found in section 317.3 and found the following items were not yet meeting those review criteria. And Mr. Chairman, if you wouldn't mind, I will go through these, go back to the plans to show you where they are that I'm seeing these items, answer any questions that you have, and then the applicants are here to speak on behalf of the project, answer any questions that I cannot or do not have answers for.
Okay.
So the first one is to revise the landscape plan to address the stormwater comments for DRC. The DRC stormwater comments were in regards to the landscape plan. They had plant material in the bioretention cells that was being proposed that did not meet the review criteria for the stormwater manual. And so they were adding up plant material that wouldn't make that biocell work well. There also was a difference on the detail versus the landscape plan for the bioretention cell. So the civil plans versus the landscape plans for what materials were in there. And then there are trees blocking the pedestrian egress for both buildings on the landscape plan. So that is the biocell, which is located here and here. This one was the one that had the more tree plantings being installed, was this one here. The pedestrian path for the exit doors are located here and here. Can you see? Yeah, you can't see my mouse on the screen. And then the detail from the civil plans is not shown, but it includes the plant material that is in the bioretention cells. The lighting plan, as is typical, these are LED lights that they've proposed. The illumination levels and the cutoff fixtures do meet our requirements. So it is just a LED versus the halogen or other bulbs that are permitted specifically by the ordinance. So a determination on that is necessary. And then the fifth one is about the rooftop units. The rooftop units that are being shown, and Charlie can speak to this more knowledgeably than I can, are different than those which are being shown on the roof plans for the drawings, and the units that they're being shown are our residential carriers. When you take a look at the height of the parapet versus the height of these proposed units, they are very, very close, and because of the size of the buildings, there are some challenges with that we are seeing. So because they cannot be seen over the top of that, there is a concern there. I've phrased a little bit in this condition, so confirmation that the rooftop units will not be visible beyond the parapet, and an acknowledgement that they should they be installed during construction, be visible, that the beyond the parapet height, it will result in a failure of the HCO inspections and potentially halt construction as it is corrected. Their drawings currently show that they will not exceed that parapet height. However, their drawings and their roof plans are not reflective of each other, and so should they be installed in the field as they're shown on the elevations, they will cause an issue potentially, or if it's a different unit than is shown on either of those, it also would cause a challenge. The HCOD inspection should be failing these inspections as they do not meet the plans anyways, but because this is something we are seeing at this level, I've put it in there as a comment just to acknowledge it, because this could become a very, very, very expensive and potentially stopping problem if they cannot find a unit that meets that height requirement, since the parapet is about 4 feet tall. So I've put that in there as the potential condition that could be added to an approval should you feel appropriate. And then the other 3 items are that a sign permit is required. That is something that is on every single commercial plan that I review, that all of the comments provided by DRC and the Planning Commission for the development plan must be addressed to be compliant with this. We are working with the applicant on, they've resubmitted a final development plan. It's been to DRC, but the resubmittal is been resubmitted. We have not provided that feedback, so that any other additional comments that are here, they won't make changes to those plans and then find that they have to change them again to be reflective of the Planning Commission's comments on the landscape plan and potentially lighting plan for the site. And then the final one is a letter of approval from Atlantic State Management, who is the declarant for the Palmetto Point Business Park ARB, must be provided. Again, that is an administrative item, and I would be happy to take a look at that at a staff level. So, do you have any questions for me on these items?
No, well, the parapet wall one, that I know that is gonna be, if you have 2 plans not matching, that's definitely an issue as far as I'm concerned, so. And I know they've been back and forth to DRC. Is any changes recently, they say to you?
Not regarding HVAC units. But the applicant is here to speak on behalf of that tonight, if you'd like to open up the floor.
Can we hear from the applicant about why they haven't addressed that?
Sure.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm kidding. And feel free to talk to the project in general, but then address.
My name is Peter Stuhlreier, Design House Architecture, 3300 Auburn Road, Auburn Hills, Michigan. Let me say I'm sorry for your loss. And I'd like to thank administration over the last year or so for kind of stewarding us through this project. It's a lot of steps and quite complicated, but we're happy to do it, and we're doing our very best to comply and bring the plans up to speed as fast as we can as we receive comments. The project, we consider this project an A+ site, and so we're trying to do the best through the ownership and us and you to bring you a project that you'll be proud of and somebody can look at and say, boy, that's not what I expected out of self-storage. And that's part of what I do as the chief architect of my company all around the country is these really good Class A sites. And so I'm not here to contradict or be contrary about anything. There's no method that we have to save money on the height of a parapet or the height of a mechanical unit. But to speak to that, the original plans, when we had positive feedback several months ago, went out into a preliminary bid process. And they did have split system units with residential style air conditioners on the roof. These were specified as 36 inches tall. They sit on about a 4-inch rack. They don't have a curb because they don't penetrate. So at that time, I believe we might have shown a 4-foot parapet. The comment came up, and we started to look at our bids and our preliminary bids and find that rooftop units, which were always more efficient, had become difficult to acquire during COVID, and the prices went up. Now they've come down. So our mechanical engineer out of Arizona, who also is almost entirely a self-storage company, hundreds of these a year around the country. So we depend on them to put these together for us. They re-specified, I believe, a carrier rooftop unit that's a 50 FCQ, whatever that might mean. And per that specification, that is a 33-inch tall unit, the whole rooftop unit. So that's on a 12-inch or maybe even a 10-inch curb. Those details come as the construction documents get completed, but call it a 12-inch curb. That puts the that puts the unit top at 45 inches. So after receiving a comment about not a potential a potential of seeing a rooftop unit beyond the parapet, it was raised to 72 inches. So the new plans that are circulating and been uploaded to the portal have a 72-inch parapet, which is probably what we're looking at on the screen. So it's at 30 feet. The floor, the roof line is 24 feet. The parapet is at 30. That's a 6-foot parapet. Regardless
Let me
of,
pause you for 1 second. Do we have updated elevation showing a 6-foot parapet? Because that may,
That's right. I was gonna say.
it is.
6 feet 4 and 15/16 inches. I'm sorry, my math is terrible, it turns out. But
I apologize. I just, because
sorry.
the other consideration is if we have the wrong elevations and now it's 2 feet higher, we need to be able to review that. So go ahead.
Understood. So, long story short, the original design of the split systems and the design of the rooftop units were close before, now they're nowhere near visible from the ground at any perspective or distance. And that's the bottom line to that discussion. I'm not sure, even no matter the location on the roof, as close as you can get to the parapet or as far back as you can get from the parapet, you still can't exceed the height of the parapet with these units. And I have documentation, I mean, we have specifications for those and the like. So that's kind of the answer to that kind of looming question. And I'd love to answer any other questions about the project. if there
Oh,
are
I don't think we're
from
done
the
with this
architecture.
question. Did you want to follow up on that, or are you good? Okay. By myself personally, y'all were asked no less than 3 times to provide information on the units. We still don't have them. Tonight is the first time we're hearing about a 50 FCQ. We don't know the tonnage, therefore we don't know the size. A 50 SCQ, I'm in the business, can go anywhere from 33 inches high to 57 inches high. And most likely, you're gonna have 15 and 20 and 25 ton units on that roof, which means they're gonna be in the 57-inch high range.
There's 6 floors.
You have 24 tons to do 59,000 square foot of building.
At 80 degrees.
The math doesn't work. I can tell you that for a fact. I do load calculations for a living.
I have the working drawings, I have the engineering, it's all out there from the engineers, they do this.
Okay.
Their game.
And we don't have them. And we don't know the units, the sizes, and I don't want to get into an argument here. We don't have data we've asked for. We don't know for sure what these units are. We don't know what's supposed to be supplying the building. I have concerns over that, okay?
We're committing that the units are not visible or above the parapet, and we know the sizes and the height of the parapet. And from a planning standpoint, normally we wouldn't have the finalized mechanicals to share. We would just have estimates of heights and parapet heights. But now because the project is imminent, we have released the engineers to give us the final specs. And that's what I'm representing to you, that I literally brought with me from a conversation today to make sure that they were correct.
That information in the packet, or that's just information that you have?
Well, the information that's correct in the packet is that all 6 of the units on both buildings are labeled RTU units. So that was updated.
Are
And
the
then
specifications provided in the packet
in the
to match?
cross sections, it shows that the unit does not exceed the height of the.
Well, it shows that it exactly matches the height. So I just you said it was much significantly higher than it, so it's not, it's equal to.
It shows what we need to show to make the commitment to this board that those things don't exceed the height.
Okay, but the spec sheet that you gave us is what you are planning to use, or it is not?
The cut sheet, the supplemental cut sheet we gave you was based on engineering that is months and months and months and months old.
So it's not reflective of the
But
current
the
plan?
sections that show the height of the equipment are a commitment to the height of the equipment, based on them being RTUs. At the time that supplemental sheet was asked for, that was the system. And then when it was questioned, we reassured ourselves that with the RTU change, we still had the heights that would satisfy your requirements.
I'm not going to get deep into this, but I am going to take exception to that because when we went to DRC for this HCOD plan, we had a conversation that there is no way that could possibly be it. And it said RTU, and it showed that cut sheet at that time, and at that time, how long ago was DRC? 2, 3 weeks? Approximately, for HCOD?
4 weeks, because that was when the.
At that time, it was requested that you get the information for the RTUs to us, and here we are 4 weeks later, and we have no information. I have a challenge with that. Let's not harp on this point. Are there other considerations? I know there was something about landscaping possibly.
Yep. And it was, do that, well, I guess the question still remains, is did it get changed, and do we have a copy of that plan that it's been changed?
Are we doing landscape?
Landscape, yep.
Okay, I'd add just Michael comment on that. Any comment? Landscape?
Oh, he can't speak to his own commission, I apologize. Nope, he cannot speak to his own commission, I'm sorry. Sorry, Mike.
Oh, you're right.
Jonathan Stewart. I had a hard time hearing the question.
Just regarding, there was mentioned to you, I guess, at DRC, as far as, as Katie indicated earlier, in other words, is there anything changed from what we actually have now compared to what was brought to you when you heard about the question on
Yes, so there were
landscaping?
some clarifications on the trees in front of the stairwell exit door stoops. Those have been shifted, and the new plan we just uploaded to the portal, and I understand it was between the original submission a few weeks ago. We just uploaded it. That clearly shows that the trees are no longer visible, and then also the plant material was qualified with more detail as to species and quantities on there. So the original one said natural ground cover, and so that's been updated as well.
There's also a question I remember hearing regarding the doors, the exit doors. There was trees that were close to that.
That's, yes, so
Same.
yeah, the stairwells, those exit doors are where the stairs are, and that has been cleared up, and there's a clear path. And there's on the updated version, on this version, it's kind of hard to see where those exit doors are. So on the updated version, we've actually inlaid the stairwell, so you see where the stair is and you see where the door is, and it a little more clearly identifies
We
that.
have a copy of those?
Yes.
We do not, because the application deadline is 4 weeks in advance of the planning commission meeting. This was uploaded to the portal. I have not had a chance to review it yet. So what we are reviewing tonight at this meeting is the one that has been included in your packet. A resubmittal, if the planning commission feels appropriate to be reviewed at a staff level for those landscape plan changes, if you're comfortable with staff being able to identify those 3 items, could be something that could be considered. And they would need to resubmit after this meeting with those changes being addressed, if that's the case. But what is being reviewed at planning commission tonight is the information that is in your packet.
All I have.
Anything else?
Commissioner Wetmore, I'd be comfortable with staff reviewing the landscaping. I think it comes back to our comfort level with the HVAC. Is I think, in my mind, the biggest issue.
Well, and, you know, majority rules, that's the thing in these commissions. I am personally not comfortable, and it's not because of staff's ability or inability. It is because we have had different stories and we have requested different information. This wouldn't even be a conversation if it wasn't picked up that cut sheets for sport systems were provided, but RTUs were drawn on the building. I think personally, it makes sense to have it come back before us, at least for that element. I will not be the one making the motion, saying, Chair.
I agree with that, just because even the curb height listed as 18 inches, we were talking maybe 6 to 12. I just think it's not clear. And we've had applicants assure us in the past that units will not be visible under any circumstance, and that's not always the case. And so I think it just needs to be accurately submitted with all of the required information for us to ensure that this will not be visible and that we know what the final elevations will look like exactly.
And to be fair, this is also trying to protect the applicant from the, God forbid, scenario that the units are too tall. There are other issues on that, but that's good enough.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. As you know, you have.
Your name and address.
Yes, sir.
Just so anybody in the audience knows. Yeah.
Richardson LaBruce, Finger Melnick, Brooks and LaBruce, attorneys for the town, and here for y'all and to provide legal guidance. So your options tonight, you have 3 at your disposal as usual. You can approve conditions, you can deny. I have the applicant's request, and if y'all are agreeable to it, it can also be tabled. And that way, if there is a potentially adverse decision based off of a lack of information, they can provide the needed information and not have to start over from the very beginning they would have to if it was denied.
Actually, I just remembered you need to be by the microphone because we're recording this.
Well,
Does it pick you up?
I'm hopeful it can put me up here.
Okay.
I'll be glad to do it if you would like, sir.
Now, if they are denied on HCOD, does that mean they start HCOD all over again, have to go to DRC and all that? Or does it mean? Just so we have an understanding of what results in what. We're not trying to punish, we're trying to respect the process.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. That is, that's my understanding, is they will have to start over from the very beginning, go through the entire process again through the HCOD, COFA HD, or COFA HD? HCOD process.
Too many letters.
Too many happening.
Highway Corridor Overlay District.
The tabling has to be at the applicant's request.
That is correct. And
General feel on the dais, comfortable with what they've submitted, not comfortable with what they've submitted.
I'm not comfortable.
I'm not comfortable.
If the commission feels like it's not going to go favorably, we would request a tabling and a return for the clarification of the size.
We don't want you to have to start all over again. That would be amenable to us. We do, when something like this happens, Katie, you usually want clear direction on what it is we're looking for, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So we're looking for on the landscaping end?
Parapet.
Scroll real quick.
Yeah. And
Items the staff found, if you have other items that need to be addressed, I'd love clarification on them to ensure that when they do get a resubmittal to us, we can make sure that we're not bringing something before you all that does not meet those requirements.
is there anything additional, different?
No, I think addressing these would meet my needs, but if there's anything else, we need, in fairness to the applicant, we need to make sure they understand what it is.
Great.
Do I have a motion to table at the applicant's request?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Okay. Under new business, item number 2, New Riverside Medical Office Development Plan. A request by Ryan Lyle and Davis and Floyd, Inc., on behalf of Russell Baxley of Beaufort Memorial Hospital for approval of a preliminary development plan. The project consists of construction of a 5,000 square foot medical office building with associated parking and pedestrian access. The property is zoned Jones Estate, PUD, and consists of approximately 1.37 acres identified by the tax member in the agenda and located within the May River Crossing Master Plan. Mr. Frazier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a preliminary development plan for New Riverside Medical Office. It's a request by Ryan Lyle of Davis and Floyd, Inc., on behalf of property owner Russell Baxley of Beaufort Memorial Hospital for approval of a preliminary development plan. The applicant proposes a single-story, 5,000 square foot medical office building with associated parking and infrastructure. As you already stated, it's on a 1.37 acre parcel in the Jones Estate PUD. It's located at the northeast corner of Bluffton Road. That's incorrect. It is located within the May River Crossing Master Plan. Here we go. We'll locate it visually. This is a intersection of May River Road and Okeechobee Highway. It's May River Crossing. It's a shopping center with a Publix in it. It's the first parcel on your left, identified as parcel C in the master plan, I believe. I'll bring that up in 1 second. This is an aerial of the same location. It is, subject parcel is an out parcel within the May River Crossing, and the utilities have been stubbed to serve the site already with the infrastructure developed for the overall development. It is also within the highway corridor overlay, so it'll require a certificate of appropriateness, reviewing landscaping, lighting, and architecture at the time of final development plan approval. This went before the DRC on May 1st, 2024, and the applicant provided a resubmittal on May 14th. This is the master plan, and the parcel we're looking at is parcel C down here. I got a closer view of the site plan. This layout will be accessed internally. This to the right or to the east is the entrance drive. I believe it's called May Crossing Road, May River Crossing. The parcel sits at a 75-foot setback, the commercial setback off of May River Road. Parking is provided. We have one condition of approval that I'll get to in 1 second associated with the parking. Planning Commission considers the criteria found in UDO section 310-3A. These are the criteria. The responses to the criteria are within your packet. Planning Commission can approve the application as submitted by the applicant, approve the application with conditions. They can table the application, or you can deny the application as submitted by the applicant. Town staff finds the proposed development does not meet criteria 2, and therefore town staff does not recommend approval. Criteria 2 had to do with master plan amendment that required that all spaces be above the required amount of spaces will be pervious. So the condition 1 is recommendation by staff is that the condition you levy on this is all proposed on-site parking more than the required 18 spaces will be designed as pervious parking at time of final development plan submittal. And I have a suggested motion. The applicant is here and can answer any questions you may have. It's moved, so it's closer. And I'll open it up for any questions you may have for me or the applicant.
How many spaces are there, Dan?
There's 40 total, 18 are required. So it'd be 22 spaces that would need to be pervious.
Any questions?
Dan, has the applicant indicated why they want that many parking spaces?
I think it has to do with the function of the building. Typically we'll get submittals that go above the minimum required, and it's usually based upon just industry knowledge and the amount of parking they need. The applicant was not aware, nor was I, of the pervious parking condition. This wasn't ignored by the applicant. It's something that they've found out since their submittal.
And there's many examples of that pervious parking in that area already?
There is pervious parking within within May River Crossing.
I don't remember any by Publix, right? So
I think
it's on the other side.
Starbucks has some next to it, I believe.
And the whole reason for the pervious parking is just the water drainage,
Sure.
keeping it away from the river.
Absolutely.
Yep.
done with Dan, I just want to ask a question regarding, is the applicant aware of this? And are they going to do anything different?
Aware of the, I don't know if you want to speak on that.
Yeah, the parking situation, are you aware of this, and can you make changes, have you made changes?
Dan, is this one that would come before DRC for
Yes.
the HCRD of the building?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, did the applicant want to speak?
Ryan Lyle, Davis and Floyd. I can answer any further questions, but I think Dan set it up well. We can address the pervious parking at final DRC. We do have to go to highway corridor overlay to get certificate of appropriateness for the building architecture. And we're working on that. So as we come back to the board DRC for final, we'll show the pervious parking.
Questions or comments? Yeah.
Just one comment, and I know you guys know, but please remember, you have to have two fronts. So no, like, service entry looking things fronting May River Road, please, when you get to the architecture.
And to piggyback on that, you have a 100-foot-long building. We don't like 100-foot-long flat buildings on the highway corridor, so you're gonna have to have, whether it's real or not, some variation in the structure, some false windows if they're not real ones. You know, we're not telling you how to design it architecturally, but if you come with a 100-foot slab of concrete, we're gonna have a hard time.
Yeah, we're used to that. It's going to be a great looking building. We looked at the adjacent architecture and we do have a substantial buffer along Highway 46, so you're not really going to be able to see that very well from the highway, but we understand that we can't have a long blank facade.
Until 15 years from now, somebody clear cuts it by mistake. Okay, Dan, do we have the proposed? Thank you. Thank you, sir. Like to entertain a motion?
I move to conditionally approve the New Riverside Medical Office preliminary development plan subject to the following condition. All proposed on-site parking, more than the required 18 parking spaces, will be designed as pervious parking at the time of final development plan submittal.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, third item on the agenda. Joyner Property, 9 Bruin Road, Development Plan, a request by Jonathan Marsh of Whitmer Jones Kiefer on behalf of the property owner Eugene Marks of Joha LLC for approval of a preliminary development plan. The project proposes the installation of site infrastructure, including the internal drive, access, parking, walks, utilities, drainage, and stormwater infrastructure to support one existing residential unit and the future development of 3 mixed-use commercial lots and 2 mixed-use carriage houses for a combined total square footage of plus or minus 19,100 square feet. The property is zoned Neighborhood Core Historic District and consists of approximately 0.79 acres as identified by the tax map number in the agenda, located at the northeast corner of Bluffton Road and Bruin Road. Mr. Frazier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a preliminary development plan for the Joyner property located at 9 Bruin Road. It's a request by Jonathan Marsh of Whitmer Jones Kiefer. The applicant proposes the installation of site infrastructure, including internal drive, access, parking, walks, utilities, drainage, and stormwater infrastructure to support one existing residential unit and the future development of 3 mixed-use commercial lots and 2 carriage houses. It's on a 0.79 acre parcel, zone Neighborhood Core Historic District, and it's located on the northeast corner of Bluffton Road and Bruin Road. Here's the location of the property, superimposed over an aerial. Subject parcel is within the NCHD district, requiring certificate of appropriateness, historic district review and approval. The applicant proposes to subdivide the property into 4 total building lots. The site infrastructure that I've just listed will be completed as the first phase. Final building uses and tenants are yet to be determined. The existing access points will be improved to provide access to the internal parking area along with utility and service access. The access from Bluffton Road is proposed to be right in, right out. The access off Bruin Road is proposed to be full access. They had a TIA prepared. They worked closely with SCDOT, who maintains both Bruin Road and Bluffton Road, worked with them on the access, had to make a couple changes of their site plan twice, I think. And the result is SCDOT would provide an encroachment permit and are okay with a right in, right out off of Bluffton Road and a full access off of Bruin Road. This was heard at the DRC on May 1st, 2024. The applicant provided a resubmittal, including a response to comments on May 29. And then they provided a second resubmittal, and that was based upon the changes they had to make due to the TIA, and that was on June 17th, 2024. Here is the layout. Here's a closer view of it. This is the right in, right out that I'm referring to off of Bluffton Road. This is the full access point off of Bruin. Proposing the heavier line identifies the individual 4 lots that are being proposed. 4A is a carriage house to the existing residential. 1A is carriage to lot 1, lot 2, and lot 3 is on the corner. They provided a site data table that brings together what is being proposed on the project. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at it. They actually include the proposed building footprint, maximum square footage, and the assumed building uses so that they could provide us with the number of parking spaces that would be required. They are showing 47 spaces, and 47 spaces are what is required. They just got under the gun on golf parking spaces. One of the last developments that have come through before we change the UDO and change how golf cart parking spaces can be counted towards required parking. I can return to this or zoom into any of these if you have any questions. Same criteria, UDO section 310-3A. These are the criteria. Planning Commission has the authority to approve as submitted, approve the application with conditions, table the application, or deny the application as submitted by the applicant. And town staff finds that the requirements of section 310-3A of the UDO have been met and recommends the Planning Commission approve the application as submitted. And the applicant is here, and I can answer any questions, or the applicant can speak on their behalf.
Well, if we're okay with it, Commission, why don't we hear from the applicant, and let's go with questions. Okay with that? Okay.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Dan Kiefer with Whitmer Jones Kiefer. We're the land planners and landscape architects. Thank you for hearing us tonight. Eugene Marks is the owner of the property, and he'd like to say a few words about the project and the place, and a little bit about the history. And then we've got the project team here. Myself, Dylan Turner, who's a traffic engineer, Nate Sturry, civil engineer, and then Jonathan Marsh from our office as well. So we're the crowd. Help you guys out.
Mr. Marks?
Thanks, Dave. Hi, folks. Eugene Marks. I own the property. By the way, JOHA are the initials of my grandkids. But I have to add another initial because we got another one, which is lovely, but I'm not doing the paperwork just for that.
I was gonna say, that's gonna take a little bit to change.
Yes. I'm gonna let the experts do their thing because this is, there's a lot of technical involved with these things and so forth, but I think it's also very important for us. This isn't just dirt and sticks and roofing and so forth. And I think to some degree that came across when we redid the house. And this is a continuation of that. We're very proud of the house. We're proud of where it's located. We're proud of the way it looks. Whenever I come downtown and I look across that view, I just say, that's just, you know, it's just a gorgeous corner. And so when we've gone at this as a team, we haven't gone at this saying, what's the best economic model? What's the highest and best economic use? How do we squeeze this in? How do we do this and do that? There were other ways we could have gone about this. For example, there was a concept that there could have been a lot on Joyner Lane there, but that wouldn't have been right for the house because that building would have been encumbering a little bit of space for that house. So we didn't proceed with that. You could reconfigure this lot. We could have sat back and said, well, let's wait for, they ask us to do the traffic studies and so forth. Traffic is important here. So we went out, invested in that, and that was done. In the fall, Dan Kiefer and I were walking the lot, and I said, you know, these trees, they need to be pruned and they need to be fertilized. And I spent 12 grand to prune and fertilize before I got here, before you were to say, you know, the trees, because the trees are important. And so, and there's a whole series of other things. I've spoken to the search group, our neighbors, about the in and out, about possibly connecting, not connecting. I've spoken to the Joiners again. Walter lives next door. I don't know if you know that, but in the house right next door, Walter and I have become friends. Wonderful experience in my life. But so we've, and once the plan was submitted, I sent it out to 5 or 6 people, well-known people in town who have opinions around what's going on in Old Town. So here it is. We're proud of it. We're going to execute it thoughtfully and properly. If you have comments, please provide them. Nothing came back. Now, and I don't think it's because no one looked at it. At least half of them looked at it. Let's see. And so there's no comments. So as we get into this, we're here to do the right thing in the context of practical, reasonable, and responsible. And I'm going to let the pros talk about their things, because for me, it's notions. For them, it's their way of life. James, the arborist, is not here, but he has a report on the trees, and the team is here. So, yeah, this is technical, and this is about numbers and details and setbacks and so forth, but it's also about intent and responsibility and trust that when we say we're going to do something, we're going to do it right. So, thank you. I'll turn it over to Mr. Kiefer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One comment, if I may.
Just one?
In regards to the 1, 2, 3, the footprints and the porches, those are essentially conceptual footprints, but we're not asking for approval on that. There's really not a process for us to get approval on the footprints, but in order to get the plan complete, we had to back into a shape and a form, and obviously within that footprint, there would be service yards, there'd be ADA access, all those things would happen within that footprint. So we've got, you know, we're essentially creating the lots right now, and those will come back, the buildings will come back through the HPC process individually or as one. It's a pretty big it would be pretty big for somebody to do this as one project, and we feel like even from a quality standpoint, this will be an evolution of architecture with working with the town and HPC and some of the detailing. So right now we're setting up the framework for that. This is really the first step of many. I don't think we come back to you guys, but we will come back to HPC several times. So with that, any questions or discussion?
I started on that end last time. Mr. Flynn, do you have any?
I probably have concern regarding just the right in, right out, and that full access off of Joyner, off of Bruin. You have to have that. Do you feel that you have? I think it'll be a traffic nightmare by itself, but that's just my own personal, because I've been stuck in that traffic before.
Sure, yeah, we've looked at all access points. Obviously, we've got to have access to the property. The thing is that cars in that area are already slowing down to very slow speed, and we definitely had experts look at. Dan could attest that we've had several options of right in, right out, full access, but we relied on DOT's approval experience with that, guiding us to where we're at now. Yeah. Writing that down.
So Dylan Turner, Killinghorn and Associates, 115 Fairchild Street, Charleston, South Carolina. So yeah, we've talked to DOT about this. So operationally, at the driveways, the both driveways, we have very.
I got a slide that shows a couple of the TIA sheets.
Yeah, you can pull them up.
Just to help you with your discussion.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, this is our kind of our recommendation that we sent over to DOT, and we actually got some input feedback from this. So one of the concerns that staff had brought up was the queue. So the turns going into the site off of Bruin, would they extend back into the four-way stop? So in the, let me pull it up here. It's not actually on that, but during the morning, we do these sim traffic runs, which is basically you put in the existing conditions, you run these sim traffic runs. We did 10, you're supposed to do 5, but we really want to make sure we get a good idea of what this looks like. So morning, we had about a 40-foot queue still back, which does not get to the four-way stop. In the afternoon, we had 93 feet. We have about 115. So afternoon, we're getting close. So then we prepared, okay, what can we do in this situation? So if you have that situation, there's going to be a reliance on courtesy gaps. So what those are people saying, hey, come on across. So there will be a little bit of that. But we also recommended some do not block intersection signs and some potential striping that you could do. And DOT said no to that, that they did not want that type of striping. That just is another thing to kind of reinforce what is called the courtesy gaps required there. But as far as like a traffic nightmare or whatever, we're not projecting these horrible levels of service or anything at the four-way stops. The no build overall intersection delays are very, very similar to the build. So we have that. And so what we have, we initially had the full movement on Bluffton Road. DOT said no, but we'll allow the full movement on Bruin. So that is actually the last submittal that y'all saw, where we had that changed this month. So that's what we have from traffic. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, it's still a concern. I mean, I know they gave you the blessing, but doesn't actually mean when, like you said, you will get very close to the end. The afternoon is gonna be there.
Yeah. In the afternoon, we're, let's just vibrate on me here. In the afternoon, we do project to get pretty close to the intersection to the point that, I mean, I think you could say it'll get to that point, 93 feet versus 115. That's an additional car outside of our projection. So we would get close. I will speak from experience where I live in an area where I depend on courtesy gaps to get into our neighborhood. And so sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. But once again, that's kind of the maximum queue. So that's what that projected max is. The average is going to be less than that 93 feet. I was out there today in the afternoon because I knew we had this, so drove around time and time again. I know it's not schools during session. We know we have some vacationers. The queue from the four-way stop was approaching this driveway a few times filled back. So this max queue we're talking about isn't going to be like the full peak hour of the site. It's going to happen every time. It could be an occasional occurrence.
Well, let me jump in because I did it at 4 o'clock yesterday, and the queue was way past the thing.
Really?
And that was just Tuesday, right? It's not a big day, and I appreciate the idea of the courtesy gap. Unfortunately, and I'm a northerner that's been transplanted down here. Not all of our northerner friends that are moving down here understand the courtesy gap. So I have similar concerns that full access is going to spill right into the main intersection of downtown Bluffton with the full access on Bruin. So yeah, I would also wonder why we couldn't consider a right in, right out from Bruin.
So one of the concerns that we've got as the team and some of the stuff that it could impact other areas through Bluffton is if we went right in, right out there, we cannot capture the southbound traffic from the circle into the site because we're limited to right in, right out off Bluffton Road, limited to right in, right out off of Bruin Road. So then what inevitably happen is then you've got people who are getting to the site that may be cutting through some of the more residential roads. So you know, there are routes for folks to get to the site if this is a right in, right out, but then you're cutting through other residential neighborhoods, and roads, and that could happen if both are limited to right in, right out.
Agree, but it is distributing the traffic over more roads. It's not ending up right into the main intersection, so I understand your point, and I understand the complexity of this, and I appreciate all the work that you guys have done on this traffic study. Traffic is getting worse around here because we're growing so quickly. And I would worry that it's just gonna be bad at that intersection, but I don't know, Jim, if you had anything else, Commissioner?
No, I think that's it. I mean, again, just being here, like you said, you're not actually from Bluffton, that's fine, but when you are in that area, that whole area, that is the main area for Old Town, you know, as far as.
I'm
everybody knows,
extremely,
you know that.
extremely familiar with the
And
Bluff.
just that, I think that, just it's that Bruin Road one, it's just the.
What part of Charleston are you from?
I live in Avondale. I went to middle school at Hilton Head, and a lot of my projects, I work very, very closely with Dan on a lot of things here. So.
Well, you know, if you've been through Mount Pleasant, what we're trying to avoid. I do share the concern of the two chairmen that have spoken already, and I live 2 blocks from there. And I see that traffic often, and the concern, and I'm talking to you, sir, as much as your traffic engineer. The concern I have is if you're coming down May River Road and you want to go straight onto Bruin Road, and you decide you want to turn left into this project, while somebody who's coming from Bruin Road wants to turn left onto Boundary, you are going to create gridlock because you're not going to turn left and they're backed up into the four-way stop, and they're not going to be able to turn left. There's a real potential for gridlock. I wish we could re-engage DOT in this conversation. I understand their concern. At least what's been explained to me is their concern is it's too close to Nectar's entrance to have 2 full-service accesses next to each other. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. That is further up, and that's in an area where it's easier to get in full access and out. I'm super concerned about 100 to 115 feet away from that 4-way stop on that narrow, no parallel parking, no other ways around it. But that's a major concern.
And I'll say too, from the technical side, you know, we ran those simulations and we didn't show a gridlock in those situations. So we're running the sim traffic to run this, which usually for a development of this size, we don't always have to run sim traffic. We look at a synchro queue, so we doubled up on queues, understanding that this would be a concern because of where this is. And so we didn't show a gridlock in the simulations. And it's like I said, we got close to the 4-way stop, but did not spill back into it based off of those counts that were all done before school's out. So the counts that we do 7 to 9 a.m. and 4 to 6 p.m.
And the question becomes, what, I know this isn't necessarily a major consideration for you, but what happens if you're wrong and we're right? A year from now, when our neighbors are upset because there's gridlock, and the people who built buildings in here are upset because people can't get in and out, you know? So this is why we're having the conversation.
Right, of course.
This is why we need to.
Okay, can I understand, can I understand what the issue is on Bruin? I understand what the issue is on Bruin.
Cars backed up on Bruin going
Gotcha.
towards May River.
Gotcha. So the proposal would be right in, right out, no left in.
That would fix the problem on Bruin, and we.
That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to separate the two so I understand.
Yes.
I don't share DOT's concern on Bluffton Road. I don't know how the rest of commission feels. I mean, I'm only one of.
Yeah, I'm trying, because I can't think of one unless I know what you're saying on the whole.
They could revisit it.
I'm just trying to understand.
Can't overrule it. Yeah. I, again, one person, I would feel more comfortable, and I know it puts limitations on you, having a right in, right out on Bruin, even if that means you end up with 2 right-in, right-outs. And I know that becomes a logistical issue. I don't know, Dan, maybe you know, how feasible it is to revisit DOT and have them reconsider this decision they made on Bluffton Road?
Well, I can definitely, Dylan has worked with DOT for decades, literally.
Yeah, I can,
I mean, I'd love to have a face-to-face with them.
Right.
I'd love to bring them down there in my golf cart or my car and show them
Right.
what the concern is. I'm afraid if somebody in Columbia or Charleston that
Yeah.
didn't go to Hilton Head Mill.
No, so we can always ask that question. I mean, we can ask, say, hey, we met with the town of Bluffton, and based off of what they experience locally in the area, they've asked this. That doesn't necessarily mean that DOT is going to change their mind on this, because the email we got, I think verbatim, was no full movement on Bluffton Road. You can have a full movement on Bruin. And even with that sentiment was, typically, if you have a right-in, right-out, you would have a median on the main line. So in this case, it'd be Bluffton Road. And he's like, don't worry about the median because there's no space to do it. And the same would apply to Bruin. In this case, I mean, we can ask. We've got a study already. Has it? You know, our previous draft had what we're talking about here. And if we're limited both to right-in, right-out, there will be a redistribution of traffic through current residential roads that would then circulate back to this right-in, right-out to capture the people that are coming from the circle. And then what we would do at the four-way.
Park in Nectar.
What we'll do at,
Shorten will make the left into Nectar.
yeah.
The Nectar knows that, so they're not happy with.
Can you explain the reasoning why DOT required the right-in, right-out on Bluffton Road as opposed to Bruin Road? And why Bruin Road, they're saying that's where you can have full access?
So it was the spacing from the Nectar driveway that really drove the full movement discussion on Bluffton, where we're currently 25 feet from Nectar's driveway, which Nectar would be full of movement, we'd be full of movement. So then you have the situation if somebody was turning left into either our site or into Nectar, the person exiting the driveway wouldn't know which one, and then you can lead to a collision. So that's the spacing deal, and so that's why they wanted to move. And then it aligns with the full movement of the gas station, which is a huge driveway across the street, but it also is with another full movement across the street. So that's more of that reasoning.
Thank you.
Just to add some,
I understand the traffic. I've made a left turn in there 200 times from Bruin into Joyner, and I have never had a problem because cars are going very slow. And that's why I'm like, a left in, yeah, I've never had a problem. Maybe they can see that I'm originally from New York and they don't want to get in my way. Maybe that's what it is. But on a serious note, I understand the issue there. I respect that. You know what my big concern on this corner is? I gotta have a left in somewhere, because if we don't have a left in off of Bluffton Road, you know what's gonna happen? They're gonna go through the promenade, they're gonna cut short and park in Nectar, and I don't want that to happen. They're gonna go either loop around Promenade, or worse, they're gonna go through the stop around Maiden Lane and come in the other side. So now, you in your capacity may say, that's fine, as long as we push it off the intersection, and I don't know how much, you know, there's 35 parking spaces or something here, you know, 40 something, and this is gonna be mostly office and residential, you know, there's a little bit for a restaurant. So I just wanna think in proportionality. Being candid as I open this, I really would love to find a left in. I mean, otherwise, this kind of doesn't work as a development if you don't have a left in. And I feel like that could be a fatal flaw for development.
And you already looked at possibly sharing an access with Nectar, that doesn't work?
I spoke to Nectar last year, I spoke to them again. They are open-minded about it, particularly if there's another development on the other side that at some point comes through. The challenge that I have, and I hope, just in all, I would like to develop this, you know, depending on how things go, and
if this is gonna be fun and easy and versus, so I'm talking about me. I would like to put some nice residential here. Residential and a restaurant with an open bar, I just don't like that kind of traffic coming through. And that would take a rework of Nectar to carry more traffic there. That's not paved. So it introduces a clientele, a type of parking, but this design could allow for it in time. This corner, it also could allow further connection that way. I prefer not to do it because I just don't think the residential people here are gonna be that happy with people and then you're gonna have people cutting the corner through Joyner Road into Nectar instead of going to the stop sign. And I'll be having to put speed bumps and all that kind of stuff. I'm sorry, I'm violating my pride.
No, look, pause here for a second. This is a major parcel in the heart of Old Town. And I'm sure, nobody's mentioned it yet, but I'm sure the next discussion is about the trees up front. We've got to have this done right. It sounds like you want to do it right. We want to have it done right. We've got to have this one, in my opinion, is more of a discussion than a dictation, if that makes sense. So, anybody else on the parking / access? Okay, next subject.
Okay. I was wondering, I think maybe for Richardson, if the arborist report for Lot 3 states that the foundation should be pilings versus solid, is that something that we could incorporate into this approval of the development plan that somehow ensures that the development of that parcel will comply with that? Because if they don't, those live oaks will not survive. And to me, then that we get into the section of the UDO where we need to preserve the tree canopy. And so I don't know if that's something that we're able to do.
Thank you. That's an interesting question later in the evening.
Last bullet in the
So as y'all know, the development plan process that we're hearing tonight doesn't really get into the vertical construction structures that are going to be built over there because those are going to be governed by the HPC and the UDO and the standards that we have. I think it is a reasonable condition based off of I think you're going to need to give me a minute on that one. I was trying to come up with something on the fly there, and I just didn't have it. If you don't mind, give me about a minute or two.
Would the applicant be amenable to something like that being incorporated?
Can you explain exactly what
The last bullet point of the arborist report mentions that for site 3 with the large live oaks, that the trees would survive if the building is built with a piling foundation instead of a solid foundation. So that would mean you couldn't just do a slab, like the Main Street building type where you're just doing a slab on grade. The arborist report does not say that that's appropriate for that lot, that you need to do a piling foundation. So I just want to make sure that if we're approving this development, that that is maintained in the design of the actual structure.
I would absolutely say that should be included.
Okay.
Absolutely, because if I get hit by a truck and someone else takes this project over,
Yeah.
I absolutely think that should be the case.
Thank you.
We're the first developer to try and kill himself off during the meeting.
Just a side note on that, the existing corner house is raised up, so that would be sort of could be the model for that, that building and the porch. And also note that in the development summary, we had that as 1 to 1.5 stories because of the canopy.
I thought it said 2.5 story, or 1.5 to 2.5.
It is.
1.5.
It says 1.5 to 2.5, I believe, in your parking development summary.
Okay, but it was lower.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The intent was the where you see the number 3, that front half would be lower, but that's going to be more of an HPC item, working within the canopy of the tree.
So, discuss with town staff as well as the applicant, and I believe it does fall within your jurisdiction, for a couple of different reasons, but primarily it is the protection of that tree canopy. But it'll also fall under the jurisdiction of the HPC, who Katie has confirmed, or excuse me, Ms. Peterson has confirmed, will be, that arborist report is an essential component of their consideration as well. So it should be caught at that level as well.
So will the arborist report, just so I know from like a process standpoint, is that something that when they come into HBC with buildings, that will be part of the application? Is that required to be part of the application?
So the design criteria for section 318.3, which is the certificate of appropriateness HD, includes all design criteria in Article 5 be met. Article 5, section 5.3 or 5.3-ish, I'm gonna say, is that the consideration of the existing canopy must be considered for the site plan, during the site planning for all sites. And because of the size of these trees, we would request an arborist report at that time. If the arborist report is the one that they've provided that has those directives in it, then we would ask that they meet the requirements of that, or the recommendations of the arborist report to protect that. So I think that the Planning Commission having a condition that the recommendations of the arborist report are followed would include the pier foundation, even though a foundation isn't something that technically the Planning Commission reviews in itself. So because both the development plan and the certificate of appropriateness both have the design criteria found in Article 5, and the arborist report is part of reviewing that tree canopy, that would make sense.
Thank you.
That kind of.
No, not right
Okay.
now.
I do have a concern that mirrors the concern we had over at Pritchard and Bruin. Are we, in considering this, creating an undevelopable lot? The conversation we had over at the other property was there were too many trees that created unbuildable lots.
The other property, though, also did not have an arborist report with a specific recommendation that it appears, if I'm reading it correctly, has the arborist actually seen this layout, or they just saw lot 3 in general?
They saw this layout.
Okay,
It was for the whole lot. Yeah.
right, but they saw the layout where they're proposing, not that we're approving this plan in terms of what the building looks like, but the report was based off of the location that's shown on this site plan, saying that it could be done with it.
I don't think the arborist would have seen where the building's gonna be placed.
But the arborist is going to consider the roots anyways. So in their report, it doesn't matter what the layout is on 3. They're going to consider any effect that a building and what the foundation would be around those 2 trees. So that's the reason why they suggested the pier foundation, because they could put it 5 feet or 10 feet. They're saying across the board on lot 3, everything has to be a pure foundation. So, I mean, I've seen arborist reports also include spanning foundations, be based on when they dig the piers and there's a root there, then they have to do something in the field to change that, so.
Well, I think this report said something about, if a root was cut, filling it or something. I'd have to look at it again.
Well, in the arborist report, it does say construction of building number 3, so I have to believe that they've seen a little bit of what this is proposed.
Yeah, just to clarify, the lot was walked with James with this plan.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm sorry. I should have. I didn't want to do that.
I don't think we're approving an unbuildable lot. I think based on the arborist report and the intent of the owner, I think they're gonna do everything possible to save those magnificent trees.
Well, and that's what I need a comfort level on, because I'm looking at a building that's being proposed underneath the drip line. I have in the back of my mind the town's recent project at Oyster Factory Park, where they were going to do wooden pilings around that tree and found out there were so many roots, they ended up going with steel pilings so they could use less. And, I've only been here 33 years, but I've been here since there were 700 of us here, and those trees are an integral part of what I view as Bluffton, what many do. And I'm not even saying that your intent is to have those trees die off, but we can't even let it accidentally happen. And that's what I'm looking for, a little bit of comfort from our experts on the
Well,
commission.
I mean, as an example, just for me as a layman, the house, if you look at that house, that foundation is a pure foundation, and that oak tree, this big, you can touch it out the window. And we did that in a thoughtful way. It was over-fertilized before, a few months before. We put the piers in, we fertilized again, and that tree bloomed even better. Now, I don't know how long, but, so you can do it. You can do it. And it would be crazy for me to build a building and kill a tree and then forever not be able to go put up a little, it just, so that we're aligned 100%. I do worry that at times we, to the point we can't lose a tree. There's got to be a practical balance here. And maybe one of the practical balances too is, hey, by the way, when you do this thing, you got to throw in 2 mature oak trees. It could be 2 20-foot oak trees, because these are going to die someday. One of them's already, I don't know if it was discussed, but one of these, James came back and said this tree is dead, number 3. It's actually should come down. It's hanging over Bluffton Road. It's the one on lot 2. It's
The 22-inch.
It's dead. I didn't want to, the last thing I want to do is come in here and say, oh, I cut down the tree just before it was, but that's going to have to come down. The others were planted at the same time. We don't know how long those are going to have anyway. So, Mr. Wetmore, I would hate to have a building and have this tree dying anyway and then say, Eugene killed the tree. So it's just a supposed situation, But we'll do everything. And we'll put it in that you have to have this foundation, you have to fertilize it 6 months before, and you have to promise to fertilize it every 6 months after. I'm willing to do whatever so that we can look back and say we were as prudent as we could be and still allow this owner to develop this corner in a way that could be developed.
So if I heard your question right, we can make a condition of the motion that anything built on lot 3 should be a pure construction, not a slab construction. Per the arborist.
I believe so because of the arborist report. Again, it's a little complicated simply because the applicant provides the building layout or what the potential, how the lot will be filled and how the building will be located on that lot, but ultimately a different, the commercial cottages could be built, Main Street. There are a number of different forms that would require those to be relocated, but yeah, I think it is within your purview. I think it falls within your authority to make sure that whatever conditions need to be placed on the development of this site, regardless of what the form of the building or the shape or the location of it on that lot, and be placed on pilings for the preservation of those 2 specimen trees on lot 3. I think that does fall within your authority.
I also just want to clarify too, for me, it's buildable in that, like, for an example, a commercial cottage, I believe, would be buildable on this lot with that particular building type, knowing that it's small, so it is a buildable lot. I'm not positive that a 4,400 square foot, 2.5-story building is appropriate there, or that particular type that they've proposed is what they're going to be able to do when they go through the HPC process. But not being able to get 4,400 square feet, 2.5 stories doesn't mean it's not buildable. It's just that it may or may not get them that Main Street building type that they're looking at.
Sorry for keep getting things important.
Well, that's why we rely on HPC. That is their function, not ours.
Yeah,
Just to clarify, the plan, my vision of that corner is a 1.5, 1 3/4 story building with reclaimed wood and a raised foundation, kind of like what I did over there in Stock Farm. Iconic building of scale. So if there's somewhere in here that says there's a vision of a 4,400 square foot building there, that I would be willing to agree that the foundation has to be this and the maximum size can only be this, and it can only be up to 1 3/4 story. I'd be willing to go that far to accomplish the protection of that corner, because that, I believe, is the right thing for the town. It may reduce economic value from what could be, but that's the right thing for this town, is a smaller scale building there.
We could put a not to exceed 1.5 story.
Are we able to say that they can't cut the leaders? That the building design must be designed around the leaders? We're giving you a workout today.
You are, not me.
I think possibly, but my recommendation would be to, rather than get into specifics at this point, to make the recommendation and something that Ms. Peterson has pointed out, because the arborist reports could change based off of changes in circumstances at the time of HPC submittal. Another thing is, I believe Mr. Marks when he tells you what his plans are for this property, but Mr. Marks may not be the person to develop Lot 3. It could be sold for any number of reasons, and somebody else with different plans can be involved, and a different arborist could come up with a different opinion on that, on what needs to be done there. So based off of what I'm hearing from y'all would be a condition along the lines of that the development of Lot 3 would have to comply with with the conditions set forth in an arborist report submitted at the time of construction or submitted at the time of COFA HD. I'll come up with something in a minute, but roughly along those lines.
And you don't think we could take up his suggestion to alter what was written in our thing as far as make it 1 3/4 and something less than 4,400 square feet? Because that's what we see in our report, right?
And what I think what Mr. Kiefer has said earlier was they're putting basically the maximum that they think that they could put on the lot here to give you the visualization of what could be done. And that is a request from staff, and it may even be a mandatory part of their application to show where those buildings would be sited or any potential buildings would be sited as part of the development plan. But ultimately, the buildings that are going to be built there can range in size and scope. And I think that the way our code works is that the UDO will dictate what building shape and size goes there based on the setbacks, preserving the trees. There are all sorts of things that could come up from a variance request to, modify a side setback or a rear setback for preservation of that tree. I mean, you can have all sorts of issues that could come up that we don't necessarily want to handcuff ourselves at this point.
Does the HPC have the authority, if they chose at their discretion, to require that the leaders be maintained and designed around, or is that not something that the HPC could enforce if they chose?
The HPC has the same authority as you do when it comes to protecting the trees. They are looking at the architecture of the building at the time when they're looking at the trees, but conservation of the existing canopies to protect those large canopy and hardwood trees in accordance with Article 5.3 or Section 5.3 of our Unified Development Ordinance would cover that for y'all's basis rather than putting a restriction on the square footage, because a 1 by 2, yeah.
I'm not trying to do that. I just want to make sure that if we stay on the course, that it's even though we will not be reviewing to make sure that they don't interfere with the existing canopy, it is within the HPC's power to require that the design of that building not interfere with the existing canopy.
Yeah, I think the way
Yes.
that y'all proposed in the way to working is a little bit like belt and suspenders. But y'all put the condition on there to follow the arborist report, make sure that the trees are protected. And then HPC will do their own due diligence when they get the arborist report, because again, we don't know if it's one or two of those, both of those trees could be gone by the time anything's developed on there, or things could change, so.
And I think the
If I may, and y'all can continue, but the condition would be that the recommendations of an arborist report be followed to protect the existing trees per UDO section 5.3.3D. I think relying heavily on Ms. Peterson there with the UDO citation.
And
So just incorrect, John. I'll bring that to you.
And just to clarify, we should reference the arborist report as submitted to the planning commission on June 26th.
I think
March
the,
22nd.
At time of development.
I think it's at the time, in the arborist report.
Okay.
So rather than getting into specifics, because again, things could change, and what may be needed to preserve one of those live oaks is different from what may be for both.
But Richardson, if I call 6 different arborists, I can get one to share my view.
Same
I
thing
like
with
this arborist
lawyers.
report. I think he cares, but to Mr. Mark's comment earlier, if he's not the one developing this lot, it could be somebody that goes out and gets a, bogus arborist report. If we
You're
handcuff ourselves to an arborist report.
You're absolutely right that could happen, but what you have to hope is that staff and the HPC will be able to see and differentiate between what is an arborist report that follows the proper methodology and comes up with a correct conclusion based off of what is being proposed versus an arborist report that is not worth the paper it's written on. And there are always those risks. It's a risk with any profession that comes before y'all, anything that's submitted.
I hear you. I'm more comfortable with having language that addresses the pier construction on Lot 3 and possibly even addressing any leaders of trees that are, that's me.
And the applicant has said that they would be fine with that too, so it's not an issue unless it becomes an issue later. It's really up to y'all's discretion.
And I think the development agreement or that particular lot can be readdressed if the trees, for some bizarre reason, are no longer there and can be modified.
Absolutely.
Old Town Master Plan is the guiding document of this lot. And Old Town Master Plan had a new town hall going there, believe it or not, but saving the trees. So.
Well, yes, I hope you see we're aligned here. Yeah, we are aligned here.
Any other questions or comments?
I have one more for staff, just so I understand. So when it comes back through HPC for each individual building, how do we make sure that the final building parking works? You just, like, the first one can do basically whatever the max is, and then by the time you get to the last one, they have to make sure that there's still enough parking, or how does that go?
Sort of.
Sort of.
So, one of the review criteria for a certificate of appropriateness is that it's in line with the development plan. So when they give us the numbers for all of their buildings, that's the maximum that could be proposed on that lot, because that's what the development plan has accepted, and that's what the stormwater plan has accepted. And so they can get smaller than that, and potentially they could propose something. So if building 3 shrinks to 400 square feet, well, that's not what I'm proposing, but if it goes down to 400 square feet from 4,000 square feet, that obviously leaves a surplus. They would have to modify their development plan to reflect that, because the stormwater plan, that will mess with the limits of disturbance for the whole site. So if they're trying to add that square footage elsewhere, it would become a challenge. So the development plan is referred to as we go through. So if it is exceeding that, they'll have to work with their development plan. But if they're under it by just a little bit, so they says it was going to be 900 square feet and it's 800 square feet, there's a potential that they won't have to modify the development plan because it won't affect the parking in a negative, like it won't change anything enough to warrant the development plan amendment, and it's under the requirements of the development plan, so.
So it's is it set by, like, where they have that table, like lot 1 through 4?
Yes.
Lot 1 does get,
That is the maximum.
that's the max for that lot. So the square footages that they've provided are the max on a lot per lot basis.
Based on
Yes,
property.
based on, because.
Based on the parking.
Because
Okay.
that's what,
So it's not the total development can be that total square footage. It is parceled off by each building, so you can review that when they submit it. Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question, Ms. Whitmore? In terms of process, where might you go now? Because I have a few other things. Where might you go now? And I had a few other comments. You just tell me kind of where you're thinking, because I had a few other things that I might interject. That's kind of a weird thing to say. You're going to say, well, what's on your mind, right?
Well,
So what, do you want to do a temperature check?
we can do that. The one thing that I would ask when and if we do a motion, yeah, that's what the word is to ask the applicant to reapproach DOT about changing the other intersection.
That would be my reservation at this point too.
But with that said, how are we feeling about this?
I personally feel that if we follow the arborist report and the applicant does what they're saying they're gonna do, protecting those trees with the cured foundation, I'm okay with that if they did something with the Bruin Road entrance.
I agree with the trees. I struggle a little bit because it sounds to me like they kind of did their due diligence with, like, they did the traffic study and the request to DOT. Not to say that there can't be more conversation. I just don't know that that's going to be a fruitful effort, but, I also struggle a little bit with I appreciate the right in, right out at Bruin so that we don't end up with traffic sitting in the intersection. But I do have concerns about what that means. Like, are people going to try to be doing U-turns? Are people going to be pulling off? Just what that means for the people that are trying to come from the traffic circle.
My concerns are those trees up front. Those always have been, always will be my concerns. A couple of y'all on commission have helped me have more comfort level with it. But I'll feel a lot better 3 years after something's built there and they're still there. What about you, Mr. Brown?
I feel pretty comfortable moving forward. I agree the DOT issue is not going to go anywhere. I think what you have here is what's going to be. It's not going to get changed from there. I think the fact that he spent 12 grand on those trees already tells us that he's willing to put some more into it based on us having criteria on recommendations from the arborist report. So I'm feeling good about moving forward with this.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, I wanted to ask the question regarding, and I was the first one to bring up, is the in and out, right in, right out. And again, I agree that there will not be an issue that if you go back to DOT, they're saying they've already approved it. What do you want from us? I'm happy with as far as the arborist report being attached to the motion as well. And I think I'm all set on that.
Okay. I don't know that we need to have a further conversation, to be honest. Sometimes less is more, Mr. Marks, at this point. So,
I've been told that before.
it took me 53 of my 58 years to learn that. I will ask, before I entertain a motion, I will ask the applicant, I know a couple of commissioners up here don't think it's gonna go anywhere, but I would ask you as a personal and professional favor to approach DOT one more time and say that there were concerns from the commission and for them to reconsider it. And They do, they do. If they don't, they don't. I think a full access off of Bruin Road is a mistake, personally.
Mr. Whitmore, I
That's it.
totally agree with that, and I have a big issue with that. I think the community is gonna look at what we've done here, and when they're stuck in that traffic, they're gonna say, why did you approve that?
Well, entertain a motion? Don't all speak up at once.
Do y'all need any recommended language on anything?
Yes,
Yes?
yes,
Chickens.
yes.
And based off of what I've heard, the preference would be to not cite the specifics of the existing arborist report that was submitted as part of this application, and that it not be made an explicit condition, anything with the right in, right out, or the access. The only condition has to do with the arborist report. So what I would recommend is a motion to approve with the following condition. That the recommendations of an arborist report be followed to protect the existing trees per UDO 5.3.3.D at the time of development. For lot 3, excuse me.
Do I have a motion using that language?
I'll make a motion to approve the project as submitted with the amendment of the language Mr. Richardson said.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there a discussion? Speak now or forever. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries 4-1. That's it on that. Do we have any further discussion? Anybody want to make another motion?
I have one, sorry. I would just introduce Angie. She's our newest planner on staff. So this is Angie. She'll be working, she's replaced Jordan, sort of. She'll be starting as a planner where Jordan was a senior planner. She was our intern last summer, and so we are really excited to have her back. And she is starting to get her feet wet with things like signs and trees, but she will eventually be handling a lot of the things that come before you all at some point, whether it's in aid or on her own, but we're excited to have her. So just welcome to Angie, sorry.
Welcome. Okay, any other motions? Like to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Adjourn, second, yeah, third.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.